Hi everyone! Wait for a few people to hop on. Welcome, we're doing a live plant propagation today. My name is Alexa. Welcome to Teanut Creek from my home office. What we're doing today is taking 3 plants that are my home office plants that we're going to be propagating to create new ones. You can follow along if you have these varieties or similar plants, and we can start learning about how to grow new plants in our home, which is a great opportunity and activity to do, especially on a rainy day like today and while we're home. So I am going to tell you what we need. You will need today some scissors. I have my scissors right now actually in a solution of rubbing alcohol and water. And I did that because I need to sterilize the scissors. We don't want to give any of our plants infections or diseases that might be on our scissors as we're cutting them, because we will be creating a wound on our original plant. You're going to need some water, which I have in my watering can. Some new holders to put your new plant in. This is actually a upcycled yogurt container. And I like to use clear because it helps when you are looking to see if the roots have formed enough to replant it in soil. So that's a really great way to not have to change or pull the plant out of water or anything like that, to be able to see if the roots have formed. So today, like I said, we're going to be doing 3 different types of plants. I have my pothos here, my spider plant here, and my succulent back here. This guy's really big. He could use some repotting. So to start, I'm going to do our pothos first. So pothos are great plants because they are super easy to deal with. They are super resilient. If you have a black thumb and think that you cannot grow plants, this is the perfect plant for you to start with. They can pretty much handle anything you throw at them. They've also been called things like devil's vine or devil's ivy because you literally cannot kill them. But that being said, we're going to be careful and try not to give it any diseases or infections by cleaning our scissors and making sure that it is healthy. So there are different varieties of this plant. It is native to Asia, so it's not something that you would see outside here in America. It would be definitely an indoor plant. And so it comes from places like China, Australia, India. And it's a vine, so if we put it outside, it would grow on things like trees and up the sides of buildings. So we really don't want to do that because it would then become invasive. So another tip with these plants, if you do have pets though, they can be toxic to dogs or cats. So if you do have a pothos plant, you want to make sure that you are keeping it out of reach of your furry friends. And so I have actually different varieties of pothos. They come in different colors and different cultivars. And so here's one version that I have. And this plant is young. I just got it. It doesn't have any growth yet that we could use for propagation. So if your plant looks like this, it's not really the time yet to start your propagation. And so this is a different cultivar than this pothos behind me. You can tell it's different colors. The leaf shape is a bit different, but they're all in the same family. And then I have this other variety, which is a marbled variety. We can see here. And this one actually has new growth, which is not also the ideal time to propagate because this new growth needs time to really develop and mature as a full leaf before you want to propagate. You can even see this leaf back here has not even fully opened yet. So this plant we would not propagate as well. Okay. Sorry, my co-host has just joined us. This is my cat Theodore. He's starting to eat my flowers and my plants. So anyway, this is the pothos that we are going to be propagating today. As you can see, it does have a lot more growth than the other 2 that I have. And these leaves, because I want to keep it away from Theodore and not let him be able to bite things that he shouldn't be, I don't necessarily want this to become a hanging plant. So I'm going to select a portion of the vine that's longest, which I'm probably going to go with this piece right here. And what you're going to notice is if you have one of these at home, and try to get up close and personal, they have these little nodes on them, and this is where your root is going to form. So what you're going to need to do is cut your new pieces beneath these nodes. So when you feel your plant, you'll feel that bump on them, and that's where the root will begin. So when you do that, you're going to want to take your scissors, which, like I said, I had put in some rubbing alcohol and water just to sterilize, to make sure that they were clean, so that I'm not infecting my plant with anything. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to cut at an angle right beneath the node right here. So it might be hard to see when I'm placing it down, but okay, so I've made my first cutting. And as you can see, this particular cutting has 3 leaves on it. 1, 2, 3. But it also has 2 nodes available. So if I wanted to, I could then cut again between these 2 and create 2 new cuttings that we could then propagate. But I think I'm going to leave this as is and make one plant that has more greenery on it, because again, plants need their leaves to photosynthesize to, survive. So what I'm going to do, taking my upcycled yogurt jar and some water, I'm going to pour water into my glass container. Okay. And then you're going to want to make sure that your nodes on your cutting are submerged in the water. And it will rest. You can rest it with the leaves, but make sure that those nodes are in the water. And so this will take a couple of days to a week or 2 for the roots to really sink in and kind of be available for you to pot this in soil. This plant does not need to go in soil though. If you notice that this cutting is happy and healthy where it is, you can leave it in water and it will thrive. But with this plant, you do want to make sure that it doesn't get stressed out now that it's a new cutting. So what you're going to do is put it back where your original plant lives, right? Because it won't get stressed out. It's not going to go into shock because it's been moved to a new location. It will be getting the same amount of sunlight and water as everything else that it had been used to. So you want to make sure that you're keeping it in the same room, giving it the same amount of attention, and then change this water. You're going to notice that it's going to drink the water, obviously, and it might get a little bit murky, so you're going to want to change that out. So that is our first propagation of our pothos plant. And you'll know when to put this into soil. The root will be about 1 inch long, and that's a great time to get this into soil. So it's going to be really important. And then to know if your plant needs water, especially with pothos, they will droop. So you will be able to see a visible change in your leaf structure if your plant needs a little bit more water. But as a cutting, you should be fine keeping it just as is. Okay, so I'm just going to move this plant to the back. Okay, so then the next plant that we're going to propagate is our spider plant. Now, spider plants are super easy also to propagate, and interestingly enough, they are from Africa and part of the asparagus family, and they can sometimes be called airplane plants, so if you're not used to hearing it be called spider plants, it's another name for it. And these plants are super interesting because they do produce their own young on the plant itself, but they can also create seeds if they have had flowers and have been pollinated. So there are 2 different ways you can get new spider plants. So you can plant these little babies directly into soil, which I've done with this plant. And so I had just taken a cutting off of this plant and planted it directly into the pot, and it's thriving. You got to make sure that the soil is wet. These do need a little bit more water. But if you're gonna do a cutting that you want to see the roots form in water, they're also a really great specimen to do that with. So when you're looking at your plantlets, is what they're called, these little babies on the end of the plant, you're gonna wanna look to make sure that they also have those root nodes. So they're going to have these little bumps on the edge, on the bottom of them, that you're gonna place in your water. So again, I'm gonna dip my scissors into my rubbing alcohol, make sure that I'm not transferring any disease from one plant to another. Make sure that we're keeping them healthy. We don't wanna give any of the plants an infection or disease. Okay, and then with these, you can cut all the way back to the stem if you wanted to, because once the shoot has been cut, it's not going to produce another new plant. But because the shoot that I'm taking is on another shoot that has this other plant on it, and that's the main stem, I'm gonna remove the smaller one. So what I'm gonna do is cut this plant right from where the nodes are, okay? And then I can cut this piece off. It will eventually die back. And it is a good idea to cut it back at the stem, just because you don't want it to cause infection again to the plant. It can form what's called a callus, where it creates a barrier so that no disease or infection can get in. And now the same thing with this plant. We're going to take our upcycled yogurt jars, and I'm gonna pour some water in, and I'm gonna put my plant directly in there. And so these guys will be ready to be planted in soil in about 1 to 2 weeks. So you're gonna wanna keep an eye on this. Those little root nodes will start to form and they'll become thicker, and then you'll know that they're really ready to be put into soil. Okay. And then the final plant that we are going to propagate today is a succulent. So there are many varieties of succulents. They are really water tolerant plants. So if you don't like to water your plants super often, succulents are great because they thrive in dry conditions. Because the word succulent is actually a Latin word that means juice or sap. It comes from the root for that. And what's interesting is that's because they hold a lot of their water in the fleshy, thick parts of their leaves. So you don't need to water these as often. They are found on pretty much every continent except Antarctica. And they are really pretty easy to take care of. So what I'm going to do is you can check your succulent for any leaves that are kind of ready to come off. You don't want to damage them by pulling something off too soon. That might be that they're still using, obviously. So I have a few of these leaves at the bottom of my 2 stems here that are pretty ready to come off. So I'm going to use these as my demonstration. So I just pulled a leaf off. I actually have a few other ones that have already started to come off that I can use to show you guys too. So what you're going to do is when you pull your leaf off, you're going to see that this is what it looks like when it first comes off the plant. It's kind of white. It definitely has been injured. That's a point to notice, is you are taking it off the plant, so they need to form what's called calluses. And what that means is that it's closing off the injury so that it doesn't lose any nutrients that way or even gain too much water. So this leaf here I had pulled off a few days ago, and you can see that this has started to brown, and it's actually creating almost like a scab over the opening so that it does not lose any more nutrients or lose any more water. And so these guys are super easy to propagate. All you really need is another little dish. And what you're gonna do with that is you're just gonna leave your leaf in there. And since they have all the water pretty much stored in their leaves, they don't necessarily need to be watered either. So what I can show you a few of these that I have. You'll notice that your leaf will start to dry out as the new rosettes form on your succulent. So here's one that's only a couple weeks old. Actually, it does take a while with succulents. So if you can see, it's starting to form a root here and even growing some new leaves. but the leaf itself that I had pulled is very soft. It's not firm as it had been when I had pulled it off. And that's because it's using its nutrients and decomposing the original leaf to form the new ones. So here are some babies after a few weeks. As you can see, it's starting to create its own roots. I had this one just laying on top of some soil. So it actually started to pick up soil and pick up some roots, but it's created this little rosette, and that new succulent will grow directly out of here. And again, a similar one that's just a little bit further behind, a small little rosette that will eventually grow into a big succulent. So that's pretty much how you would propagate any of these 3 plants. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. I can answer them after this. If you have any questions you can message us. These are great just to bring in some, greenery into your home. It is Earth Week. We want to be as green as possible as we're celebrating. So what's better than bringing some greenery inside, especially when it's rainy and we can't go outside and places like Teaneck Creek are closed. But we do want to, make sure that everyone is well, and I hope you all are safe, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.